Call the meeting to order for the Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2017-27, December 5th, 2017. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, please do. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item on the agenda, entertain a motion to approve the legislative minutes from November 21st, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion or corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to approve the open work session minutes from November 7th, 2017, in reference to the personnel manual.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to approve the open work session minutes from November 7th, 2017, in reference to the stormwater management.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to approve the open work session minutes from November 7th, 2017, in reference to the donation of land.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to adjourn from the legislative session and to convene as the Urban Services Commission.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now convened as the Urban Services Commission. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from November 7th, 2017.
So moved. Second.
Any corrections? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Minutes are approved. Entertain a motion to adjourn from the Urban Services Commission so we may reconvene in the legislative session of the Wicomico County Council.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. We're now reconvened as Wicomico County Council. Good evening, Mrs. Hurley.
Good evening, Council President, council members, ladies and gentlemen. There are a couple of changes to tonight's agenda that I'd like to announce. Resolution number 159, 2017, pertaining to the land donation will be postponed to the December 19th council meeting to allow administration more time to gather additional information. The closed work session on personnel will be postponed to the December 19th council meeting as well.
Thank you.
Looking at the agenda, the first order of business this evening is the election of officers. Pursuant to Section 303 of the Wicomico County Charter, which states, at its first meeting in December of each year, the council shall elect from among its members, by a vote of the majority of the total number of council members established by this charter, a president and vice president. The president, or in his absence, the vice president, shall establish the agenda and preside at all meetings. On all questions before the council, the president and vice president shall have and may exercise the vote to which each is entitled as a council member. Tonight is the election of the president and vice president. Are there any nominations for council president?
So I'll nominate John Cannon.
I can't do it.
Mr. John Cannon has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, by voice vote, starting with Councilman Matt Holloway.
Aye. 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 Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. President. Would
Thank
you
you, Ms.
like
Hurley.
to call for the nominations of vice president?
Thank you very much. We open the floor now for nominations for Vice President of the Wicomico County Council.
I nominate Larry Dodd.
Larry Dodd has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, that closes the nominations. We'll take a roll call vote, starting with Matt Holloway.
Aye.
Ernie?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Aye.
Larry? Chair votes aye. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
President.
President.
Thank you, Ernie.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurley.
The next item on the agenda, Actually, the next three items on the agenda are public hearings to amend the fiscal years 2018-2022 capital improvement program and capital budget. Council has previously discussed each of these projects in a work session, and a public notice was advertised in the Daily Times stating that a public hearing would be held this evening at 6 p.m. Starting with the public hearing on Resolution Number 163, 2017, to amend the fiscal years 2018-2022 capital improvement program and capital budget to increase the cost of the Public Works project for Barron Creek by increasing the total estimated cost from $500,000 to $850,000. And we have Mr. Dallas Baker here, Director of Public Works, if there are any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. At this time, we open the floor for public hearing on Resolution Number 163, 2017. If you have any comments that you'd like to make in reference to this resolution, go to the podium, please. State your name and your concerns. Mr. Kramer, are you? That concludes the public hearing on Resolution 163, 2017. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 163, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
I have a question.
Mr. Baker.
We originally estimated the approved project at $500,000. It was questionable whether we were even going to do the project. And then it came up that discussion ended up that we were going to do the project, either an option or a dam or extending the road. But here we're looking at a 30% increase in the cost. Is there a particular reason why we have a 30% increase in this cost?
I'm not sure what numbers went into the original 500,000, but we've been receiving some construction estimates back from the work we're about to do on the Morris Mill Dam down on South Division Street in Fruitland, which is very similar with the exception of the outfall structure. So we've been looking at that project as a guide for how much money we're going to need for this work at Barron Creek, and so that's how we've adjusted our numbers.
Well, that project did the same thing. It went from like 600,000 to 1.2, if I remember correctly. I don't know if it doubled, but it was astronomical.
That's right.
Dallas, we are going to get some relief when we sell the house. Probably that'll go back toward that, right?
Yes, and
Okay,
that's
so
my understanding is that the
Probably
money.
won't be a large amount, but it'll be a little bit anyways. And we are not putting in a new dam,
Correct. We're not putting in the dam.
just putting in culverts.
Yes,
And
yeah.
replacing the road, so the road will be usable.
Yes, and we're also going to be working with the consultant to engineer some improvements within the pond area to try to establish some WIP credits and water quality credits as part of our management plans.
Do you have an estimated timeframe for the work?
I think the design's probably going to take about 9 months and probably another 9 months to a year to do the actual work. There'll be some variance based off of what DNR allows us to work within the stream bed.
I'm not sure if the material, and I don't anything about the engineering of this, but they are doing a lot of grinding on Route 50 now with the used asphalt. I don't know whether the county can obtain any of that or not.
We can certainly
As a
look into it.
substance, yeah, to use, yeah.
We can look into it.
Yeah, okay.
There. John? Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 163, 2017, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes. Thank you, Mr. Baker. I guess you're going to stay here.
If you don't mind.
Keep that seat warm.
Next is a public hearing on Resolution Number 164, 2017, to amend the fiscal years 2018-2022 capital improvement program and capital budget to increase the Public Works purchase cost for a solid waste land acquisition in the amount of $4 million.
At this time, we open the floor for a public hearing on Resolution 164, 2017. If you have any comments you'd like to make in reference to this resolution, come to the podium, please. State your name and your concerns. That concludes the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 164, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
This is the land, which land is this?
This land has not actually been identified. This is just land that we have been in discussions with. Because of the tight time frame that we have for getting a potential expansion of the existing landfill through MDE and approved, we're looking at several possibilities for locations of additional property. This would allow us to fund those acquisitions with no one specific property in mind, but just with the understanding that it is not in the existing CIP, so we're amending it now so that if we do move forward with any additional property purchases, that we've done our legislative due diligence to be able to move forward at that time. And again, any purchase or any potential purchase would come before the council to be discussed. So this is just setting us up so that we have the CIP amended, and then if there is a potential parcel that we want to pursue, again, we would come before the council to discuss the specifics of that.
You mean discuss or approve?
Discuss.
It would-
Any other questions?
Yes. I don't remember this figure when we looked at the land surrounding that, the potential properties that we were looking at. Did we ever discuss a price or a limit on what we were going to spend? That $4 million seems kind of significant. And I understand what you're saying about the CIP, and I had the same thought that Councilman Davis did.
Yeah, we have a price that for several parcels that we were looking at. The other owners had requested to go back and obtain appraisals of their own. They're in the process of doing that. They have not come back to us on what that price may be, but there was not there was not an upper limit set, but there also, it wasn't like, okay, this is what we are going to spend. This was us putting something into the legislative tube to get it rolling so that we have all of our bases covered and not have to come back. As you've seen, for example, with the Cell 9 construction, where we estimated a little low and then we had to come back for a CIP amendment. We were just trying to make sure we covered all our bases so we didn't have to bog down the agenda a second time.
It just seems like a significant number. I don't remember discussing, but I understand what you're doing with the CIP.
Joe?
Now, let's see, last paragraph, it says, approved as amended to increase the solid waste land acquisition funding by $4 million. What is it increasing it to?
To increase the solid waste funding by 400,000. That's the last line on mine. Is there a?
It says funding by $4 million, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 4 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it says $4 million. So what, it says to increase the solid waste land acquisition. So there's already a fund there for that?
That's what we're establishing, is an item in the CIP to cover land acquisition in the amount of $4 million.
I understand what you're saying, but it says here, it says to increase. So that means that you're adding to something, I would think.
Okay.
Is that right or wrong?
Should the correct terminology be to add instead of increase? To add this to the capital improvement program?
Is it adding to the capital improvement program, or is it adding to that specific fund, I guess is what
Yeah,
my
I think the
question is.
appropriate wording, Joe and John, would be to add to the solid waste CIP that amount of money. There's not an allocation in the current CIP
Okay.
established
That's what I'm
for
getting-
land
that's
acquisition.
what I was getting at.
So,
Okay, that's fine.
so the wording is a little bit awkward.
Okay.
And you may want to amend it, actually, make it clear.
Would you like to make that?
Always have something to say, don't
Would you like to make that amendment,
Yeah.
Councilman Holloway?
Yes, I would like to amend this Resolution 164-2017, for the last paragraph to said to add to the solid waste CIP fund instead of increase. And I'll let Ms. Hurley figure that wording out if you want to make it right.
So all references to increase
Yeah.
should be added
Yes.
instead.
Yeah.
You understand
Yes.
correctly? There's a motion on the floor to amend Resolution 164-2017 as stated. Is there a second?
Yes. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, amendments approved. Any more discussion on the resolution?
I got another
Sure,
question.
Joe.
I'll try not to mess this one up here. This money can it be used also for appraisals and things of that such? Is that what this will be for, or is this just used for the acquisition?
I believe it can be used for appraisals, yes.
Appraisals and identifying what we need, okay? And things like environmental studies and things like that, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay.
Thank you, Joe.
That's
Any-
it.
Any other questions from council? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 164-2017 as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Next is a public hearing on Resolution Number 165, 2017, to amend the fiscal years 2018-2022 capital improvement program and capital budget to include the purchase cost of the Merle G. Culver 43.03 acre parcel on Brick Killen Road in the amount of $680,000.
Thank you. At this time, we open the floor for public hearing on Resolution 165-2017. If you have any concerns, please come to the podium, state your name and those concerns. That concludes the public hearing for Resolution 165-217. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 165-2017.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
Yes, just to make it clear, is Merle Culver related to the executive?
It's the other name I use. No, it's too far distant if it is.
Okay, just to make it clear for the record.
But you make that.
I was hoping he'd give it to you.
Joe?
What, adding 43 acres, I suppose this will be used for the landfill. It's not going to be used for building buildings on. It's going to be for depositing trash. Is that correct? Pretty much so, or?
It depends on if additional land is purchased. It has the ability to be either used for an expansion or for the expansion of our borrow pit.
Okay.
We all, at the end of every day, we have to cover the trash up with dirt, so we need dirt to cover it up.
Okay.
And it could be used for that as well.
Is there an estimate on what this purchase, how it will extend the life of our landfill?
If this site is used for that expansion, it's estimated to add about another 20 years to the life of the landfill.
Any other questions? Good, all right. Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 165-2017, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried, resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item for business is a report from the Wicomico County Compensation Allowance Commission by Dr. Memo Derricker.
Good evening, Mr. Derricker. If you'd like to sit at the table, you could do that as well. I'd like to welcome Delegate Carl Anderton, who's here tonight. We also have a prior council member, David Ennis, who's here tonight, prior Vice President of the County Council, Bill McCain, and President of the City Council, Jack Heath, and past President of the City Council, is that Mike Dunn?
Yep.
Correct? Okay. Welcome. Glad to have you all here. Hope I didn't miss anybody.
Mr. President, members of the council, every 4 years, this commission comes in front of you to make recommendations with regards to the compensation for the county executive position, the sheriff position, and the county council president, vice president, and member positions. Members of this commission, with the exception of Ernie Colburn, who's not feeling well, are here in the room. If they would stand, please.
Great.
The entire commission, as I said, with the exception of Ernie, who's not feeling well, they're here. And This is, as you can see, a very diverse group of commission members from different walks of life, different worldviews, and we are very proud to come in front of you today with a unanimous recommendation for the changes in the compensation in the various positions. One quick correction I want to make on page 1 of our letter, Marty Neat just brought to my attention. There's a $17,000 figure that should actually be a $10,000 figure. I don't know how I made that mistake, but my apologies. Basically, you see our recommendation. We're recommending that the executive position be $130,000, sheriff position be $105,000, county council president $20,000, vice president $18,000, and for council member positions $17,000. These numbers have been put together on the basis of a series of deliberations. I think we met 5 times beginning with the summer and looked at various compensation levels in the county for different organizations as well as different counties in the state of Maryland. And we looked at inflation figures. We looked at a number of factors and put it all together to come up with our recommendations. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
I have a couple of questions. Memo, when you did your research on this, you took into account all the counties in the state of Maryland.
Correct.
And so this is an average based on all of those counties, rather than maybe only the counties on the Eastern Shore?
No, we take a look at all the counties, but we also try to standardize the compensation using 2 variables, the budget size of the budget of each county and the size of the population of each county. This year, we added a 3rd variable, which was the number of employees in each county that are being managed.
Would you have considered doing possibly the 2 Lower Shore Delaware counties and possibly the 2 Lower Shore Virginia counties, which have the same agricultural base that the Eastern Shore counties have? Would that have been a consideration?
No, this time we did not. In fact, the past 3 times we did not do it, basically because when we first started this, we sought guidance from MACO, Maryland Association of Counties, and the methodology they recommended is the one we use.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm not got a question, I just got a statement to make. For whatever reason, my computer won't flip around here. So
I had the same
I'm
problem.
looking at it like this. I guess my only problem with the comparisons is using Prince George's, Montgomery, Baltimore. When you throw that into the mix, if you left them out, that would have probably brought those numbers down greatly.
Not greatly, it would, but
Yeah.
we do stand, for example, for the larger counties, we don't take that as just a number. We do divide that number by the number of employees in that county, the number of population there, the size of their budget. So we do compare the differences. And that's the methodology MACO recommends. If I were designing a brand new methodology for this, I would add only one more thing, which would be the Maryland Department of Commerce calculated differences in cost of living. That would have actually pushed ours down probably, our recommendation, by probably $2,500.
And I bring that up because a lot of times when something comes in front of the council, and it's a variable things, a lot of different things, we're always compared to Montgomery County. And there's so much difference.
Very different, and that's why we don't take it as a dollar amount. We take it per capita, per budget dollar, per employee, to be able to compare more apples to apples and oranges to oranges.
I noticed you also make some procedural recommendations, and could you discuss those? And I think that we'd have to change the county charter, I believe, to do those, as well as there was a recommendation to have the salary linked to cost of living adjustments.
Correct. This last paragraph there, which says a procedural recommendation, that is not a charter required thing. We did that because the past 3 times this council has met, our recommendations were not followed. In fact, this particular county executive compensation level hasn't changed since the position was created. And there was a discussion among the members of the commission that it is somewhat difficult to deal with the optics of this, because from the decision to the actual application, the time frame is too short. And we looked at some best practices, not only in Maryland, but other parts of the country, where they usually do it towards the end of the election cycle rather than just before the election cycle. So if you vote now, it would be not the incoming, but the next one kind of situation. So we put that as an observation. It has no, obviously, legal basis other than maybe sharing our little bit of frustration with, doing all this work and not getting any feedback.
Well, no, I mean, well, my comment about the charter was not that you shouldn't have done it. I mean, I think it's a good, you obviously have a lot of experience with this and, in years past. We'd have to change the charter to accomplish this. It was my thing.
I understand,
so,
and we did discuss that, and we
okay.
of course, neither are we knowledgeable in that field, nor do we have any basis or background. We just simply make it as a recommendation, and we don't know what process would have to happen. We just wanted to put that as a thought, just a little suggestion.
I guess that is maybe something for Laura or John, if we discuss any charter amendments for the upcoming election year, that discussion should be probably at that point. So if we don't remember, I'm not sure what our plans are, but that should be noted as such. So.
Did you have any input from staff on any of these decisions?
Whenever we had questions, we took them to the HR director and to the county administrator. For example, when we wanted the current budget figures, current employee numbers, current salaries, those are the two individuals we work with.
Okay.
Yeah, we do appreciate the fact that you at least took into consideration the cost of living index. I think that is important. Absolutely. Again, thank you very much to all the committee members who are here tonight for taking the time to put this together and for being here tonight as well. We do appreciate that. I guess the question would be, we will certainly have a work session on this memo. If either you or a member of the committee would want to be available,
absolutely,
we certainly would reach out. Okay?
Absolutely.
Because we do appreciate the work that you've done, and I think there are some members of the council that do think that it may be time to make some changes. It's just a matter to what degree we might choose to do that.
And that's your prerogative. On behalf of the commission members, I'd like to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share the report with you. And as you said, we're at your service if you have further questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Resolution Number 166, 2017, confirming the appointment of Mr. George Mandel Copeland to the Wicomico County Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission is an advisory board on planning, zoning, and development issues, including rezoning, subdivision, and site plan review.
Entertain a motion to approve Resolution 166, 2017.
So
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution is approved. Mr. Copeland, I know you're in the audience. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Mr. President, that's all I have.
This time we open the floor for public comments. If you have any public comments you'd like to make, come to the podium, please. State your name and your concerns.
First, giving honor to God and thanking Him for the opportunity to be here. To President Cannon, members of the County Council, and all those assembled, good evening. My name is Mary Ashanti, and I'm president of Wicomico County NAACP. My purpose tonight is to talk about the Economic Impact Scholarship Program. The additional criteria of grade point average of 2.5 for entrance into the program is what we're concerned about. This stipulation would block many applicants from being accepted. Currently, Warwick does not have, as far as my knowledge, a requirement for GPA for entrance. Let me share something personal as to the other reason why I rise. I come from about a background of poverty when I was growing up. Had it not been for programs like the CETA program, like the Manpower program, and when I became employed, the work-study program, I would not have graduated from Wesley College, which was the first college that I received a degree, an associate degree in nursing. Those types of programs helped me to move from poverty to an opportunity to become, to the middle socioeconomic status, or to become a high tax-paying person. My point is the purpose of the Economic Impact Scholarship should be the vehicle to help an underprivileged person to move from poverty to obtain a degree, knowledge, and skills to help them to move from poverty. So it's my personal concern, and also the concern of the NAACP, that you not add an additional stipulation to entrance in the economic impact program, because we believe that it would block many applicants from being accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, President Shani. Any other public comments?
Mr. President, I appreciate the opportunity. I won't have a long comment. My name's Marty Neat. I'm chairman of the Board of Trustees of Warwick. I know that you will be discussing this issue later in work session, and we appreciate the council's support of it in the past. I will just state that, in my opinion, the most positive thing that you've done on the council in the last couple of years was to develop that scholarship and to offer that scholarship. And it is truly an investment in the future of this county. It provides an educated workforce. It'll make a huge difference in the future with that workforce. The average community college graduate makes 25% more in their working life than someone with a high school graduate. Now, if you do the math, let's say that $37,500 is an average over a 40-year period. That's $2.5 million in income that worker will earn during that time period. If they don't have a degree, they're going to earn 1.125 million. So, I'm sorry, I misstated there. It was 1.5 million is what they would earn. So in essence, they're going to make $375,000 more in their working life. And that's going to be money that's going to be reinvested back into this community, buying houses, shopping, doing all the things that we need to have done. So again, it's an investment in the future of this county. It doesn't hurt, too, that you're giving somebody an opportunity to grow the pride and to the pride that comes with achieving something important like a college degree. So, again, we'd encourage you to keep offering this scholarship. Let's make it work. It's only beginning now to have an impact. The future, the impact that it will have in the future, none of us can tell. But we do know this: you're going to have better workers for the future. You're going to have a more affluent workforce, and I think we all benefit from that. So again, we'll look forward to the discussion later. We know that you've got a work session on the issue, but I'd encourage you to support this program.
Thank you, Mr. Neat.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm Mike Dunn, the President and CEO of the Greater Salisbury Committee. I echo Marty Neat's comments. And just as a reminder, a thank you, number one, for starting this program. It's off to a slow start. We remind you that the original funds allocated haven't been used, haven't even really come close to being used. We agree with President Ashanti that putting some more, if you will, limits to how this program could work with the GPA might continue to erode the opportunity for Wicomico County students to go in. And I guess the point that and the reason I stood, two things, is to remind you that this program has the overwhelming support, and I will repeat that. It has the overwhelming support of the business community in Salisbury and Wicomico County, both the Greater Salisbury Committee and the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, as well as virtually every Rotary Club in town and so many other community organizations stood and rallied behind this, and none of that has changed. And the second thing that I just might say is I've had the privilege of having individual conversation with each of you on many occasions, and all of us are appreciative of that. And one of the things that we hear constantly is that Wicomico County is poor. It is a poor, that's a phrase, I've spoken to Councilman Kilmer a lot about that phrase, and it's not one that I think any of us in here like to hear, but you know, sometimes when you look at the statistics, that word, it's fair, it's a fair word. So to Marty Neat's comments, if we have an entire generation of Wicomico County residents who could earn as much as nearly $400,000 per person extra during the course of their life and their working life, wouldn't that then translate into maybe 10 years from now and 20 years from now, and maybe perhaps even sooner than that, that Wicomico County, we can drop the word poor because our individual income rates will rise because we will have a better educated workforce, a better prepared workforce to enter into our jobs, and of course workforce development, which is always a goal out at Warwick Community College. I dare say that I look at City Council President Heath, I look at County Executive Culver. We know that both of them are here today, and both of them one of them has the job, one of them has aspirations for this job, and both of them are in support of this Warwick Economic Development Initiative. So, and many of you have been in support of it. So I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the discussion that you're going to have later tonight. Thank you again for the original support for this program making it through. Mr. Culver's idea came from the council, and so thank you very much, and we hope for a positive discussion later tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
My name is Mark Rudnick, retired Vice President for Administrative Services at Warwick Community College. Spent 36 years there full-time. The reason I'm commenting is when I heard President Shante talk about the 2.5 average. It rang a bell in my life, and it was a very significant bell. And what I want to transfer to you is the concept that I have, that a 2.5 is a nice average, but you got to work to even get a 2.0. You can't go to college. Remember, it's a C average. You have to pass every course on average. That's a challenge for a lot of people. I had a nice career. I spent 120 credits before I ever reached a 2.0 to graduate. My very last day. It takes a lot of work to get there, so don't sell it short that 2.0 is nothing. That's really a challenge for a lot of people. And that's all I want to say. I didn't want to shout to people that it took me 3 forevers to get to 2.0, but I had a lovely wife-to-be who was distracting me quite a bit. So it was worth it. But anyway, thank you very much.
Any other public comments?
Real quick, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So my name is Carl Anderton. I'm a Maryland State Delegate for Wicomico County, and I'm very blessed to have this opportunity to represent our home up in Annapolis. I just got back from Annapolis. I was up there today working, and I just wanted to say real quick, I wanted to thank the county executive and the county council for moving so fast on the acquisition to expand our landfill. As you know, Governor Hogan had rescinded a regulation prohibiting expansion of our landfills across the state, and immediately there were 4 bill ideas drafted up to put that provision back in place. So with the quick action here, regardless of what may transpire this winter, during the legislative session, we should be in a good position to be able to expand our landfill. Some of the differences in Annapolis is, a lot of our more urbanized areas have curbside recycling, so there's less of a need for a hole in the ground to bury your trash. But until we have curbside recycling in bivalve and Wongo, we kind of are still needing to bury our trash. And so as generations come and as we progress in recycling and composting, that need will lessen. But I just wanted to say I appreciate the quick action here locally. So as we go up this winter, that we should be in good shape. So thank you guys very much. Yep.
Thank you, Delegate Anderson. Any other public comments? Seeing none, council comments.
Well, I just want to say thank you to Delegate Anderton and the executive and the council for the landfill issue. I mean, I think that is an important issue. I will say I was at a community trash cleanup in Bivalve a few months ago, and some people do put their trash out on the roadside in Bivalve, and they shouldn't. But there was plenty of trash by the roadside out there, and that's something we don't need to encourage people to do that. Delegate Anderton and Bivalve, they need to take their trash to the center there. So just please don't put your trash out in the curbs in Bivalve or anywhere else where there's not curbside pickup. In terms of the Warwick tuition subsidy program, we are having a work session on this, so there'll be significant discussion later. And there's not, this isn't a discussion about ending the program. The program passed last year. I was in opposition for it. I lost that vote, and we moved on, and that's fine. That program is in place, and as I've had discussions with at least a few people, once there's a government program in place, it doesn't really go away very easily. So right now, we're not focused on getting rid of the program. It's a discussion on how best to make it work, and I think this will be a good discussion to have. But the program's in place. It's not going away, and I think we're focused now on, all right, what have we learned over the past year? What can we learn from other areas? Let's move forward with making this targeted to those who need it and those who would benefit most from it. And I think that's what we'll be discussing in about 5 minutes or so.
Joe.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Delmar football team on their big win. All right? Yeah, they did great. The town of Delmar gets behind their team so much. What's the colors up there? Blue and orange. You better not wear red up there, I guess, right? You'd be in trouble. But anyway, that was really great that they did that. Secondly, the Christmas parade. I've been in numerous Christmas parades. I've not made all of them due to various things happening, but I don't think I've ever seen one any more well attended, and I think a lot of that had to do with the weather. And of course, the quality of some of the people in it, right? But anyway, some of the floats were great. The bands were great. The kids they take such pride in that parade, the kids that are involved in that. And the commercial floats too, so that was great. On the tuition program, can kind of reflect on what Mark said a little bit, but last meeting, I brought up a possible forgivable loan program that we could maybe do. Hopefully, I got some positive remarks from when Wayne was sitting at the desk that maybe it was something we could look at. So maybe that would lessen the burden and give the people that are taking part in the program a little more responsibility in it. So maybe that's not what we're going to discuss tonight. I understand that, but that's something we need to maybe work on in the future. So, and that's all. Thank you.
Any other council comments? Okay. Seeing none. I have to read this. Entertain a motion to adjourn from legislative session to go into open work sessions followed by closed work sessions pursuant to the local government article section 3-305B, 7, 8, and 14 as follows. 1, to consult with staff, consultants, or other individuals about pending or potential litigation to protect the county's legal position. To discuss a matter directly related to a negotiating strategy to protect the proposal process. And a closed work session before the Urban Services Commission to consult with legal counsel to protect the attorney-client privilege. That is the motion. Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Meeting's adjourned. First item on the work session, open work session, Economic Impact Scholarship. I know Dr. Boy is here tonight. Good evening. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Doing great, thanks.
Good to see everyone this evening, thank you.
We had originally put this on as you know, as a resolution. Had some discussion with some community groups, Mr. Dunn and a few others who had said, well, they would like to at least see it in a work session. I know that was you're in favor of that as well, so that's the purpose of the work session today, Dr. Hoy. So we'll let you, I know you always have a prepared statement, so we certainly let you begin.
And I'll hopefully be able to respond to your questions as well. And Mr. Kilmer, I was very appreciative of your comment about wanting to improve the program. As I think there are ways to improve the program. I don't believe raising the GPA to 2.5 is a way to do that. But let's go back to the purpose of the program. It's to increase the percent of population with a college degree and help reduce the brain drain in our community in order to provide a much more educated workforce for our businesses and also to encourage new businesses to consider coming to Wicomico County because they will have knowledge that we have a skilled workforce. We have people here who can help them in their individual businesses. These individuals will have an opportunity to get an education, stay here in our community, buy homes, buy cars, and help our community grow stronger, expanding the tax base. And that's what it's all about. Historically, over 90% of our students stay in our community even after transferring and earning advanced degrees. I represent that. I am a Maryland Community College graduate. I went to Chesapeake College. Warwick didn't exist, but I was from the Upper Shore. I stayed on the Upper Shore for 26 years. I've never left the shore, but I stayed on the Upper Shore for 26 years after I completed my studies, my degree at Chesapeake, much like our community college students do. Now, okay, I moved. I didn't move far, but I left 2 additional generations behind in Kent County that are continuing to keep that economy going. So at least I was able to do something in that regard. But I am very representative of the types of students who start and then continue staying in their communities after they graduate from college. In spite of being home to 2 excellent higher education institutions, Warwick and Salisbury University, and neighbor to a third, Wicomico County lags behind the state in a percent of population with a college degree. We currently have about 35% of our population with working age population with a college degree compared to 49% today in the state of Maryland. And Maryland's trying to achieve 55%. So we have to continue to improve ourselves in order to be competitive in the state of Maryland and certainly competitive regionally. So for some of those reasons, I think this increase to a 2.5 GPA for incoming students is a mistake. We're not going to solve the workforce needs by creaming. And what I mean by saying that is taking only the top students. We need to be able to offer opportunities to as many students as possible, including those who were otherwise unlikely to attend college. Frankly, that's where we're going to get the growth, for those people who are unlikely to attend college, and that's many of the students that we're talking about here. You heard Mr. Neat say that studies show that most jobs with family-sustaining incomes require at least some college, and those are growing by number. And that 25% delta between a high school graduate and a community college graduate and an associate degree graduate is significant over the period of a lifetime. One of the underlying purposes is to have more students access education. And excluding 37% of the county high school graduates isn't going to do that. And what I mean by that is the 2017 class of Wicomico County High School, the 2017 graduates, 342, or 37%, had less than a 2.5 grade point average. The average of the entire class was 2.7. It takes a 2.0 grade point average, as Mr. Rudnick mentioned, to graduate from college. And we have quite a few very significant, successful workers who have a 2.0 grade point average. And Mr. Rudnick's a perfect example of that. I had the opportunity to work with him for about 16 years, and he did a tremendous job for the institution. So I agree with you that raising the eligibility criteria can improve the success rate. Just like hospitals can improve their outcomes by only admitting healthy patients. But that doesn't make any sense either. You got me. Hospitals can improve their outcomes if they only admit healthy patients. Don't you agree?
No.
Oh, of course.
I don't agree with your analogy.
Well, I understand you don't, but what I'm saying
agree with
is,
that analogy.
a Harvard, Yale, a Stanford, those institutions who are bringing in 4.0 students, they're going to have better outcomes. There's no question about that.
They'll be better prepared.
They're going to have better outcomes. They're coming in better prepared. There's no question about it. But when we have 37% of the students who graduate from our local schools that have less than a 2.5 grade point average, we're just going to throw them away? That's not helpful. That's not good. And again, we're trying to increase the percent of population with a college degree. You don't do that with the people who are already going to go to college. So there's a lot of late bloomers who aren't really successful in high school, or they don't meet your definition of success. But once given an opportunity, they can thrive in a college setting. And I can tell you that a year doesn't go by at graduation where a student doesn't come up to me and say, Dr. Hoy, you're not going to believe this. I graduated with a 4.0 average, or I'm an honors graduate here. But when I was in high school, I barely made it through. I was the worst student in school. Now, there can't have been that many students who were the worst student in each school, but I hear it every year, year in, year out. And they're able to succeed because some people don't play the high school game well. They haven't figured it out. But once they get to college, they do figure it out, and they become successful. And that's important, and we have to have opportunities for them. I know that some of you have been harping on the statistics from the first class. And that's the class that was thrown together in less than a month last year. This wasn't even approved until after the 2017 students graduated and left high school. The students who came, this wasn't something that was on their radar. They came forward and participated in this program. And I know there's a lot of focus on this. Some of the ones who are no longer receiving your scholarship are still enrolled as students on a part-time basis. Others have transferred on to another institution. That's not a bad outcome because they typically come back. Even those that don't end up graduating, they go on and they come back and they live in our community. But for those who are going part-time, one of the reasons they're going part-time is that they had to work. We've had students turn down the opportunity to be in the program because they had to work full-time. And they recognize that they're not going to be successful if they work full-time and try to go to school full-time at the same time. So for those people who say that these kids don't have skin in the game, I think you're wrong. They have to give up an income. They have to give up a job to attend school full-time. The scholarship doesn't pay their bills. It covers tuition and fees, but in the case of community college students and our tuition rates, sometimes books are every bit as expensive as tuition. There's lots of costs associated with this. But I think the assertion that the program wasn't successful after this first year class, that's something that disheartens me the most, because I can say with a very high degree of certainty that the experience of one cohort does not constitute a trend. And to jump to the conclusion that because you don't like what you saw out of a small cohort of students, and that's a reason to make this significant change and actually increase the GPA. That's in this past year's class, we had 18 students this year, 18 students, 10 of them would not meet that criteria. So you're limiting it now to 8 students who would be eligible under this criteria. You might say that you're not trying to do away with the program, but frankly, it seems to me to be death by 1,000 cuts when we do things like that. So I want to share an interesting comparison between the Wicomico program and the Somerset Economic Impact Scholarship program that the governor funded. The Somerset program does not have an income threshold. much like Garrett's program, Delaware's program. There's no income threshold for access into the program. And even though it's the most economically disadvantaged county in the state of Maryland, half of the Somerset Economic Impact Scholarship students are outside of eligibility for Pell, compared with only 15.5% of Wicomico students cohorts. Half of them are outside the eligibility. Now, I know some of you say, well, that's good. Why should government pay for those people if they can afford it? Who's saying that they can afford it? The average student loan debt of a baccalaureate level graduate of the 2016 class, I don't have the 2017 data, was $36,000. With $36,000 in student debt for baccalaureate degree earners, they're not going to go into the workforce and start buying cars and buy homes and have a lot of discretionary income. They're paying off those loans. That's a lot of debt to have, and that's with them for a long time. So the best thing we can do is try to reduce that debt so they can become good consumers in our community and be trained and educated, part of a stronger workforce. So the big difference was between the Somerset students and the Wicomico students is their no family income limit. The $75,000 adjusted gross family income limitation that you imposed creates a situation where very few Wicomico students can qualify today. Remember, it's last dollar funding. And the way Pell works, the Federal Financial Aid Program, Pell, $65,000, average family income of $65,000 and less, qualifies for Pell, and mostly full Pell. So we have a band of students between 65 and 75, and some of them get partial Pell. So you really didn't have to pay for very many students. In fact, the first year cost the county $39,000. You appropriated $262,000 originally. You pulled $50,000 back. So you appropriated for the first year class $212,000 and only spent $39,037. This isn't about money. Clearly, it's not about money if we're talking about $39,000. So there are other opportunities for us, and what we need to think of, frankly, is if you want to make a change that's going to be more productive and more helpful to the county and to the students, it's to raise the income limitation from the 75 that it is today to the 110 that we had agreement on, or 125 that was proposed and makes more sense and is where most programs are. So, as I say, to me, I think the most important thing we can do is raise the income cap, help more middle-class families to be able to afford higher education, and fulfill the intent of the program.
Thank you, Dr. Hoy. Council comments.
I have a question.
Larry?
I was trying to remember the numbers that you were throwing out. 37% of high school graduates
In Wicomico County,
had less than a
2.5.
2.7.
2.5. Average was 2.7, had less than a 2.5.
If these high schools have 4 guidance counselors, how did this 37% slip through the cracks?
What do you mean? Why do you say they slip through the cracks? What's
If
wrong
they're
with
not-
a grade point average of
if they're
less than
not going to
2.5?
college, if the guidance counselors don't guide them into a pathway for college, what? I don't understand. There's 4 guidance counselors there, and each student sees them, don't they? And don't they discuss college?
Well, I don't work in the public school system, and I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that by having an opportunity like this, where we were able to market to people the opportunity for free community college tuition, people who found out that they were otherwise eligible for free tuition through Pell, who would not have even made this opportunity, would not have even attempted this until they found that out. They came through the intent of participating in this program, and they found out, gee, it's not going to cost the county a penny, and I can go to school for free. And that's a great opportunity for them as well. So school systems, there's a lot of students, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of different opportunities for them. Some of them are coming to school, some of them aren't. This reaches out and helps more people come here and stay here. That's the intent. Come here and stay here.
I understand that. I'm just wondering where that 37%, what happened to them?
No, I'm not saying they didn't go anyplace. I'm saying they had less than a 2.5, so they'd be ineligible under this criteria that's being proposed. They'd be ineligible for this program.
But do you have any scholarships now that have a higher GPA requirement?
Sure. There are academic scholarships that have higher GPA requirements, and there are financial aid opportunities for low-income individuals that give them opportunities to attend college as well. But everybody's not eligible, and there's not enough money for everybody.
I understand. Thank you.
Mark or John? John?
Mark's going to yield to me, and then
I'll
I'll
yield
yield
to
to him.
John.
Go ahead, John.
First of all, I'm not an expert in education. If I was, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be sitting where you are.
There's many days you can have it. Today might be one of them.
Right now.
And you know, I appreciate your dedication and the service that you've given to this county. And you really don't have an oar in the water here. All you're trying to do is raise the level of the quality of life in Wicomico County. And I can't see where there's any other benefit for you and for Wicomico County than the service and what you propose in this program for us in Wicomico County. I don't think there's any question that, you know, by using this program like it is, we will increase workforce training, we'll offer more jobs, we'll raise the level of income in Wicomico County, and it doesn't matter really what the percentage of success rate. If we have one person that continues, and that one person is going to continue to raise the level of success in Wicomico County. But here we've got almost a 30% success rate with a program that's just started. I think that's credible. And the other thing is, that even though we have these 2/3 that will not progress, and you said may take individual courses or night courses or may take other courses, when I fill out a college resume, or they fill out a college resume, they don't ever have to say again that their level of degree that they have is the 12th grade. They have some college at that point, whether they complete or not. And that impresses an employee to a certain extent, I think, when we're moving on. And again, it's going to raise the level of all the boats that are in the water. And I thank you.
Thank you, John. And studies have shown that students with some college make more money than high school graduates. But I'd like to get away from the concept of these students being unsuccessful. Frankly, some of my heroes are students that take 10 years to graduate because they are successful, because they're persistent and they continue going to school and they get that degree and they're making a tremendous contribution to their business by being a better educated and qualified employee.
One of my local heroes was Doran Christensen, and he was the head of the education department at Salisbury University. And Doran told me one time, give me a C student, because they have to work harder for what they get. And they will end up being more successful than the A and B student that don't have to work as hard. And I've always remembered that. And here's what we're talking about, education, getting an opportunity to people who can raise the level all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you. I talk to incoming students every year, and one of the messages I give to them is it doesn't matter whether they were valedictorian, salutatorian, or the bottom of their class. Because whatever they did in the past isn't going to be necessarily indicative of what they do in the future. They come to us with a clean slate, and they can make whatever they want to of themselves and move forward from that point. And the salutatorian or valedictorian is going to have to prove it again, and they probably will. But the student who ended up last in the class, who becomes an honors graduate, I'm really proud of them as well. So, you know, again, it's making sure we give people the opportunity and provide that for our citizens so that we can increase the percent of population with a college degree, so we can increase our taxable base and help our businesses to be more successful, be more competitive.
Well, I will echo what John said. I do think you do a good job at Warwick, and I know we've had many discussions about this and other issues, and you know, this is not personal or anything like that. You know, so I appreciate you know, all you've done for Warwick. And with that being said, you know, when we talk about success in this program, it's the successful criteria as laid out by the criteria for success is laid out by the program. I mean, you are right that people going to school part-time or people who, you know, otherwise, you know, have issues, have to work and things like that, doesn't mean they're successful. Success, though, in this discussion is the criteria for the program, which is 12 hours or 12 credit hours per semester, 2.0 GPA. And if people are not meeting that by this program's criteria, I think it's fair to say they're not successful by this program's criteria. It doesn't mean they're not successful in Warwick or in life or in school or anything like that, but for this program. And so I think that's what we need to focus on, is how well is this program working as laid out, and how well does the program's criteria lead to further success maybe down the road in terms of life or school and things like that. And you and I had discussions last year privately, and I think here, about my concern was that this program does not necessarily address the barriers to success broadly defined that confront many Warwick students. And we can probably talk about that later, but let's just stick on this 2.5 issue. Now, for me, it seems that this program, if we're using taxpayer dollars, we have to look out for that too. Whether it's $40,000 or $250,000, it seems like the program should be aimed at those students who, one, need it, and two, will benefit from it the most. Who aren't going to take a semester or two and then drop out of Warwick, for instance, or who could otherwise pay for Warwick themselves. It should be narrowly focused on those who will benefit from it and those who need it. Is that something you would agree with?
In part.
Okay, all right. Well,
No, I don't agree completely with what
Okay.
you're saying, because,
Okay.
again, we have to look at what the purpose is for the program. We
Okay.
want to reduce the brain drain.
Mhm.
So we want to encourage people to start with us,
Okay.
so that they'll come back and stay in this community. So we have a very limited band, as I've pointed out,
Yeah.
of eligibility today. And you're decreasing that band by reducing the GPA below or increasing it to a 2.5. The eligible numbers of students almost goes away.
Okay. So, well, 2.5, I agree. I mean, so there are a number of students who would enroll in this program and not complete Warwick for whatever reason. That seems clear that there are kids who would do that. And
That is going to be true of all of our programs, whether they have
Yeah.
scholarships or not.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I don't deny that.
Sure.
But, we're talking about what we're paying for here. So I
Exactly.
think we have a right to be like, all right, so maybe if we don't pay for some of those people, that would be a savings because they're not going to have the desired benefit. And 2.5 is, a proxy for maybe some, a cutoff for some of those students that wouldn't succeed, possibly.
Possibly,
Possibly.
but not necessarily.
Well, what would you recommend then in how we could better focus the program on those who are likely to persist in Warwick for, to meet the program's criteria of
Okay.
2 or 3 years, I guess it would be 3 years of, 12.
Three to make two,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
essentially how we
Ba-
broke
yeah.
the program out.
Yeah.
I think clearly that the family adjusted gross income should be raised so that we have a larger pool of people to take advantage of it, and a pool of people who can reduce the brain drain. I also think that we need to provide the opportunities for those students who are high school graduates who are coming to college, and give them a chance. We don't sustain them. You're not spending a whole lot of money if you think about the fact that if they're not successful in completing the 12 credits, they don't continue. So you're not throwing money away. However, those that earn college credits, those college credits do equate to dollars in the workplace, according to statistics outside of my realm, that they say that people who get some college education, that benefits, there's a pecuniary benefit to them, and there's a benefit to the businesses that get those people. And those people that say, I can't make this at 12 credits a semester because I have to work, but I'm going to continue in my education, they might have only come because of this program. So we're giving them that opportunity as well.
And that may all be true, but again, the program is set up to have people persist through that's what it was sold
We
as.
want them to persist,
So-
there's no question about it. However,
Okay,
again,
yeah.
to gauge things on the first year's class experience really seems ridiculous in my mind, in the sense that they had 30 days, they already graduated high school, the counselors had no opportunity to work with any students going into this. So we found, or they found, a group of students who came into the program in the first year. And as I said, 1 year does not a trend make.
Yeah, no, and I don't necessarily disagree with you on that. I mean, it's not a trend. It is, they are the hard numbers, and they are, you know, it's not, I mean, unlike John, I do disagree that we can't be happy with even just one passes through. You know, we have to get
I'm not happy with that either.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think we, you know, and this is, I guess it goes into the wider issue. You know, and this is not just Warwick, and I know we've talked about this before, is that there is a persistence problem in terms of people that enroll in community college, and then, you know, whatever happens, you know better than I mean, it was, you know, the numbers I saw was that of students who enroll in Warwick who attempted to complete at least 18 hours within 2 years of enrollment, 63% of students did that. And then of those 63%, the ones who really struggled to persist and have success, which is, you know, success in the program, were those who, people who struggled were those who were not deemed college ready. And so it seems that you have, you know, I know there's, how do you define college ready?
Well, there is an assessment for college readiness, and frankly, almost 80% of the students that come into our institution aren't college ready.
Yeah.
Are not.
Or not. Yeah. Well,
so that's what we're starting with. That's our foundation.
And I think that's part of the problem of why there's a problem with the people who come in this program. I mean, I think that's probably part of why, you know, we had some people that didn't persist, and why just in general Warwick does. I mean, are you working with the Board of Education to, you know, how do we make sure that people graduating Wicomico high schools are college ready when they come to you? I mean, I'm not saying you're doing a bad job here. This is a systemic issue that, you know, if we're just giving money to these kids that aren't coming out of Wicomico high schools ready, that's not good use of this taxpayer dollars. We need to, what can we do elsewhere? You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think actually things should be changing.
Okay.
In the sense that in 2013, a bill was passed in the state of Maryland. It was called the College and Career Readiness and College Success Act of 2013. Mm-hmm. And in that, they established new criteria for determining whether students were college ready while they were still in school. And there was an assessment done in the 11th grade. And if they aren't college ready at the end of the 11th grade, they have to take transition courses in the 12th grade so that they can become college ready by the time they get to us. It should significantly reduce the numbers of students who need developmental education who are coming directly from high school. It's not going to help the people who come back, who've been out of education for a while and need a refresher. But it should make a difference for people coming in. This year's graduating class was the first class who had a transition course experience. It's going to take several years. I'm not going to base it on 1 year's experience and say, oh, gee, it was a failed experiment. That was the first class who ever did it. So we're going to monitor this over a period of time. We work very closely with all 3 public school systems in terms of helping them, working with them to develop their transition classes. They use our end-of-course assessments for our developmental education because, frankly, the students who complete our developmental education core are as successful or even more successful than the students who didn't need it. So we're using our end-of-course assessments in the public schools, and they're using our courses in several of the public schools for their transition classes in order to be more successful, so when they come to us, they're ready for college. That should make a difference in the long term. We work very closely with the public schools, and I'm very pleased with that relationship. In the past, there was not this alignment between high school graduation and college expectation. For example, Algebra 2 is a requirement, is an expectation for college readiness. But it wasn't a requirement to complete high school. Another thing is that they now are required to take 4 years, every year, mathematics. One of the problems with math is it's a skill that's lost if you don't keep doing it. And many of the students were completing their math requirements, high school math, before the 12th grade. And so subsequently they'd come to us and they'd need to be assessed and found that they had to be remediated somewhat, or they never had Algebra 2. That's not remediation. That's bringing them up to the skill that we expect. So there's lots of changes that have taken place, and I expect to see better outcomes from the public schools and a stronger incoming student in the future.
Well, Neve, I'm glad to hear that. That is good. when we've discussed this before, you really caused me to go back and look at what's going on with other promise programs and things like that. Because they go on and around the country. There are legislative proposals in many states. I have to say, when I look at them, a 2.5 GPA is fairly standard across the country. This is not, 2.5 GPA didn't come from me, by the way. It came from the guy on the other side of me.
Right in front of me. I know.
Exactly. And oh.
No, I know where it came from.
So, but looking at that 2.5, again, it's not, if John picked it out of thin air,
But 75,000 threshold is not. You didn't find that any place either.
No, we didn't find that any place either. So
That wasn't arbitrary.
Yeah, but
That wasn't arbitrary.
But we'll let. but the one thing that does really stand out is that all these programs are different. There's no model for a promise program,
and that's because they reflect the values and the needs of the communities.
The local communities, yeah.
Yeah.
And I know the Obama administration, for instance, was really pushing these, and I know the Obama White House, in their handbook for these programs that they were really pushing, recommends a 2.5 GPA and recommends an internship or some sort of internship requirement. As they said, research shows that scholarship designed to help students with their expenses and encourage good academic progress by requiring them to earn a minimum GPA increases the likelihood of credit accumulation, academic progress, persistence, and completion. That's
Mark, as I said, I know
Yeah.
our outcomes would improve
Yeah.
with a higher GPA. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, it's my opinion that you're turning away so many of the Wicomico County high school graduates and not providing any other opportunity to help this program grow because of the limitation, that band between 65,000 and 75,000, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, to your point, I think that if this would be imposed, I don't think it would be fair to impose it right away, because I think that part of the reason why a higher GPA requirement works is that it gives something to shoot. It encourages essentially
to incentivize it.
When you start as a
Exactly.
freshman, saying you get a 2.5 GPA in 4 years, you can get free college, basically. And
I can live with that. Personally.
So a phased-in sort of thing would, that to me would be the way to give an incentive to people to improve their academic progress, because that is what if there's a GPA requirement, it should be doing, is to incentivize people to have higher GPAs. So I think maybe that is I don't know, I'd have to talk to the 2.5 guy over there about that, but that may be a way to find some common ground here, is a phased-in 2.5 requirement to give people incentives in high school, saying, this isn't just to be handed to you because you graduate, but it's going to be handed to you because you've shown you've kept your eye on the ball over these past 4 years. But that's maybe not here.
And that makes sense to me, because that gives people an opportunity to recognize, if I do this, then that. But to be honest, if I do this and my family's income is less than 75,000, that's different. And I'm not sure I don't know if they're going to be there or not, or what the situation's going to be, that sort of thing. That's a limitation that I think doesn't make sense for the program.
Well, okay. So you're saying that basically you want $125,000. You think that families under $125,000 cannot afford Warwick
I didn't say
tuition.
they couldn't afford it. We're trying to incentivize people to start here. And because if they do, historically, 90% of the students stay in our community. So if you start here, you're more than likely to come back.
Well, that 90% is a little bit misleading, because that includes all Warwick students, which is also the people who are 40 years old and going back for classes that have roots here. How many high school graduates that, come right out of high school and go to Warwick stay in the community? Do you have figures for that?
I don't have them on the top of my head.
That's
But
what we're talking about here.
We have a very high percent of high school graduates who come to our institution compared to other institutions around the state. We have a very competitive high percent of our local high school graduates who come to us directly out of high school.
Yeah. It's, $100,000, let's say we raised to $100,000, that's 80% of Wicomico households. Right now it's 75,000, it's 67%. That's, it's the vast majority. We're not Montgomery County here. We are a poor county.
Come to us regardless. Recognize that as well. They're not all going to come.
Yeah. So is raising the income limit the only, looking at these other Promise programs have a variety of different things where they work with the high schools, where they work with the students, the ASAP program in New York that we've discussed before. Is raising the income limit the only improvement that you could see for this program that would both target it to those who need it better and improve persistence in the program?
It's going to help. There are other things that we obviously, we learned through the first class.
Yeah.
Realize again,
Yeah.
my staff only had 30 days
Fair enough.
to rally and to get things going.
That's fair.
We've got a couple of grants that we are participating in, a Title III grant that 142 first-generation college students are eligible for additional mentoring and tutoring resources and some cultural experiences and things that help persistence. And those students who are participating in that program have a much higher persistence and success rate than those that aren't. It's kind of like the ASAP program in New York, in the borough of Manhattan, but it doesn't have all the features of that, but it really does make a difference. We just got a veterans upward bound program, TRIO program, that's going to provide the same services for veterans. That's not going to address this group, but it does instill a culture of this sort of help and resource on our campus. But I don't have the numbers of people that I need to provide the additional help to every one of these students. But we are putting in place a number of things so we can monitor their success and see what's going on with them. And we need to improve, there's no question.
One thing I did notice too when looking at all these other programs is there's a real lack of academic study on what makes these programs successful. Would that be something that we should maybe look at here? Say, we've just started this program, let's have a rigorous, university come in and study this and look at, what we're doing, what would be successful compared to what Kalamazoo does or what Delaware does. I mean, there's a real lack of information about what makes these programs work and what doesn't make these programs work. And that makes it difficult when you're looking at, all right, how can we fix this program? This is what Kalamazoo does, but does that mean it's more successful than what we do?
There have been some national studies that have looked at the programs. They've looked at a number of different things, ranging from the numbers of people who move to a community because those programs exist in those communities, and it's increased the population of the community because people say, gee, if we move here, we have an opportunity for our son or daughter to go to college for free, at least for the first 2 years. And people actually move to communities to do that sort of thing. So there's any number of factors that you can look to assess. And we told you when we put this together that we would do that. And I welcome somebody else looking at this.
I mean, and I'm not denigrating what you've done, but, the studies that are really good look at, beyond just what these students are doing, but, comparing them to people that haven't been in the program, much more rigorous academic studies about what works and what doesn't compare, to control groups and things like that. And that would seem like there'd be an opportunity here. This program's not going away. We're not getting rid of this program. Since we're going to have it, let's figure out.
Well, you might be if you reduce the number to an unworkable number. That just doesn't make any sense.
What to me, it seems that we'd be interested in, all right, finding out what works. Let's make this program work then. Let's figure out, why people have trouble persisting through Warwick. And if we can have this program geared towards fixing some of those problems. I don't think we have a good handle on that right now. And I don't think this program really addresses that. And that's always been my concern with it. And if we're going to spend money on this, it's not just people going to Warwick that we should be concerned about. It's people graduating Warwick and getting what they needed out of Warwick, what they set into Warwick to get, coming out successful from Warwick in doing that. And I think that if we can design a program that helps boost that, then we'll have real success. And I think that we have an opportunity here to turn this into a program that would do that. And I don't think just paying free tuition is what will improve that persistence rate and success rate. So, I think we should work together to figure out what we can do. So,
as I've said, I welcome that.
I've probably talked too much, so I'll let others.
No, I think I have, but.
The one thing I think we're losing sight of is the fact that we are all on the same team here. This was really unprecedented to begin with when it first came to the council, and it was debated quite a bit, and the council voted to approve this program.
Right, and I certainly appreciate it, and I think it was a good move.
Oh, we do too. The idea there was the fact that we did recognize the fact that we needed to try to see some type of economic development, and who better to target than students coming directly out of high school. And, you know, we had very, very high hopes for this, and we still do. I think what you have to look at, though, is where you set standards and where you don't set standards. We're not trying to kill anything. I know that it was said earlier that, you know, we were looking to continue to erode the program. We're actually not doing that. We're trying to do just the opposite. We're trying to improve the program. We're trying to make this successful so that, you know, we can tell the public, we can come back to the public and we can say, this worked. Look what's happened. Look how much more money is coming back into the community. And that's really the whole premise here. We're not trying to kill it. We're trying to improve it. But we're thinking, I think, you know, in trying to set some type of standards, even students, when they're in the 7th grade, they have to follow some type of criteria, some standard in order to go to the 8th grade. And they're not being punished by not going to 8th grade. It's sort of saying, you're not ready for the 8th grade. And that's what established. And that's what our concern is here, is that you can't force students to take a college education. They have to sort, to my impression, they have to prove that they're qualified for a college education. And so there are standards all along. We had a 60% washout rate, which I think was really huge. You had expenses, you say that costs don't matter. I know it's been said before, costs don't matter, but not you. I won't say you, Rand. I know that you're more than very efficient with tax dollars. But in this case, where it would normally cost about $1,500 for average students, this program...
$3,750 is what it costs for an average student in a year.
Well, I'm not, well...
That's a full-time student.
The numbers I'm getting at is that what it cost this program was probably almost twice what it would normally be per each student that succeeded through the program.
Not correct.
All right, well, I'd like to,
it's $3,750. If a full-time student's cost in a year is $3,750.
Right.
So this cost you less than that because many of the students had only had partial Pels.
Well, what you're telling me now is a lot different from what we got from the original work session that we had about 6 months ago. From the original work session that we had earlier, based on how many students were going through the program, what the costs were, I did the numbers at the table here, and it was looking like it was costing us twice as much. If that's not the case, I'd really like to see that.
Well, you can do it right here, right now. $125 a credit hour times 30 credits.
Well, let's do it this way. If you have 12 students that are paid for to go through, or 25 students that are paid for to go through the college program, and only 40% of those students succeed, you can't possibly say that it's cheaper because you've just invested 60% of the students, you've invested in them fully, and they haven't gone through the program. So it's at least twice as much.
Well, you didn't invest fully if you invested half a semester, perhaps.
Well, we can do the numbers later, but if you have a 60% washout, it's costing you more per student. I mean, I don't know how it cannot be costing you more per student. If you're paying for 10 students and only 4 of those students go through, to me, it's almost, it appears from face value that you're more than doubling your costs for the taxpayers to send one student through the program. But I'd be glad to, you know, however you want to rework those numbers or let us know, that would be great. But getting back to the, you know, as I said before, somehow or other, I think you have to set standards. And we looked at this washout rate and simply said, what can we do to improve it, to make it more guaranteed that these students coming in will come out of this program? So we thought, well, how about 2.5 instead of 2.0? And I know on the programs that Warwick offers, whether it's merit-based scholarships or whether it's need-based scholarships, I can't give you the exact number on that either, but it's probably 70 to 80% of those scholarships require 2.5 or 3.0 averages. So I don't understand why this program is considered to be on a lesser standard than the multitude of programs.
This isn't an academic scholarship, John. This is not an academic scholarship.
Well, even merit-based scholarships
that's what I'm talking about, a merit-based scholarship.
Even merit-based scholarships are 3.0, 2.5 requirements. So I don't know why this program is supposed to have a different standard.
Well, this one wasn't designed that way, and I'm sorry if you thought it was. It wasn't designed. There are opportunities for the best students to get scholarships at our institution and elsewhere. there are opportunities for the lowest economic threshold students to have financial aid. The middle class, the lower middle class, and middle class individuals are the ones who are suffering right now trying to pay for college.
Right.
And this was intended to help that group, but also at the same time help the county by keeping them here, getting them educated, keeping them here, and helping our workforce.
We understand that 100%, and we bought into that, and that's why we did this program. All we're trying to do is to see how we can improve, from our perspective, what it is that we can do to improve the percentage of people who will succeed in this program. And the first thought was, well, why don't we just pretty much follow the same guidelines that is already established even in high school, that you have to judge if that student is qualified enough to go to the next level. And if you're bringing them in with a 1.8 or a 2.0 and you're getting a 60% washout rate, maybe you need to improve or improve on your standards in order to make sure that you have a student who is more dedicated to a college career. Instead of trying to push it on them and force it on them, make sure that they prove themselves. The other issue, as far as the $75,000 is concerned, we went through that rather carefully to make sure, in looking at what the cost of living was, what the poverty levels were, et cetera. The $75,000 reaches over 60% of the population of Wicomico County. And I understand you have Pell Grants and everything else that comes into it.
That works up to 65,000, and a portion of the students up to 75.
Right, but it's going over. It's about 300% above the federal poverty level is what we're going along with here. So it wasn't like we just said let's just do 75. We went through quite a bit of structures as far as different levels of income and the largest percentage we could of students that we could get into the program. So the 75 is what we settled with. I know that back in April, New York announced that it was coming up with a program, and I don't like to talk apples and oranges. I can only give you my comparisons. But New York has now proposed back in April of a program for free college tuition. The minimum family requirement is $100,000, and that's in New York.
Growing to 150.
But that's in New York.
Growing to 150.
But if you look at the
The whole
socioeconomic
state of New York,
differences.
no, you're thinking of Manhattan. The whole state of New York there's a lot of economically disadvantaged portions of New York, because I go up and I chair middle states teams that visit those institutions.
Right.
So I visit those communities, and everybody in New York is not a millionaire.
Well, I still think the standards on the Eastern Shore of Maryland may have a different level of average income than New York as a whole. I mean, we know what our levels are right now. This is the county in itself that applies for grants from the state, simply for disparity grants.
Sure,
because it's a
60%
low
of
income.
the students who are in public
Exactly.
schools are on free and reduced meals.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're thinking
And we're
that-
trying to help improve that.
Right, and the $75,000 threshold certainly does, because it reaches every single one of them. So I just wanted to let you know it wasn't randomly pulled out of thin air. It was just something we evaluated and came up with that solution. Joe?
Yeah. In your opening statement, and Mark related to this a little bit, I referred to it. You made the comments about them, staying here.
Right.
Mark brought out the numbers that was everybody, not just people. But and this is not what we're talking about as far as the grade point, but there's no mechanism to get them to stay here, and that's something I was talking about last week. So that's something that we need to improve on. So you made the comment about people have moved to counties to get free tuition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then when they leave. I mean, they could leave. You didn't say that, but they
No,
could leave.
they
Because
could.
in this one, there's no mechanism to get them to stay here, and we know from the meeting we had that night, the young lady made the comment that she was leaving the area.
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to
Yeah.
talk about her.
Yeah.
Because she's very similar to many of our students.
Mm-hmm.
She said she was going to leave at the end of that year and transfer. She didn't. She's still here. She's still in the program, and she's successful. And now her plan is to transfer to Salisbury. Because like many students, their goals change.
Well,
So,
that's
that's nice. And I know she said that to you. I was sitting next to her on the other side of you when she said it. And, I clutched myself when she said, I'm going to go to Bowie and I'm going to live on the Western Shore. And I thought I'm going to kill Brian for putting her up here at the table. He's behind me. I hear him.
Anyway.
But I've subsequently found out that, she is here and she's
good.
planning on staying now,
So-
which is what happens with community college students? With students.
Right. But there is no, you can agree, there's no mechanism to get them.
You're
to stay.
absolutely
Okay.
right.
All right, the other thing, I do want to make this clear for people in not necessarily live audience, but on PAC 14, we're only talking about people that are subject to the free tuition. You don't have to have a we're not pushing for a 2.5 grade average for everybody that goes to Warwick.
Correct.
So anybody that's in TV land watching this right now.
Thank you for that clarification. I don't want
the-
to lose people because of that.
Right. The other
Yes.
thing is, John brought up the council voted for it. A majority of the council voted for it. Not all the council voted for it. I think it was a 4-3 vote, wasn't it, John? Something like
Yes.
that. You know, you brought up the student debt, you know, coming out of college, is $36,000 average. The people that are having to pay this out of their taxpayers' dollars have a lot of debt too. They have home mortgages. A lot of people in our counties are still struggling. You know, the recession it took it longer for it to get to Wicomico County, and it's taken longer for us to come out. And if you look at follow the Daily Times, you'll see that there's still a lot of foreclosures. So there's still a lot of problems with folks that's in debt. And I know it's tough on these guys or girls coming out of college with a $36,000 loan to have to pay off. But the ones we're talking about having to tax to pay this have debt too. So
Good point, fair point.
Pardon me?
I said fair point.
Yeah. The other thing, I was looking at a letter, and John, related to this. You've got scholarships you hand out that's got to have, what, 3.0 and 3.75?
Merit scholarships,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
And need-based.
It's a need-based.
And need-based.
I'm wondering why you set that standard when you say it's a merit.
We probably didn't.
Somebody did.
Yes.
Okay.
The donor.
You know, so why should we be set to a different, or why should this be set to a different standard, I guess, and you've already
concept.
explained that.
Yeah.
And the other thing I got to say about all this, and I'll close because I know it's getting late, is, you know, this was initiated by Wicomico County, and then Somerset ended up being a beneficiary through the state, and we're looking at doing workforce scholarships or tuition loans or whatever you want, however we work it.
Right.
I'm not so sure we shouldn't ask the state to pick up what we're doing on this end.
There's a bill in the legislature. It's going to be introduced. It was introduced last year to have free community college tuition across the state. I don't know that it's going to pass this year, but there are requests that have been put forward for that sort of thing for Maryland. Another state, I can't think of which one it was, but you know, we have New York, Oregon, Tennessee, and another state just passed it this past week. We're seeing states step up and do this sort of thing. In Maryland, Prince George's County picked it up this year. Washington County picked it up through a different process altogether. So it's expanded to a number, well, let's see, Allegheny, Garrett, Washington County now, Prince George's County, Somerset, and Wicomico at this point. So it's going county by county.
Garrett was the original.
Garrett was the first in Maryland, yeah. Yeah, it's 11 years in Garrett County.
Do you think that this program would be better off if some of the 2.0 students were like on a provisional status, taking maybe 2 classes a semester?
Yes.
I figured you would.
I do feel that way. It's a big
colleges
challenge for
require
some of those students,
yeah,
and that
full-time.
might be a way to do it. Brian comes to me all the time and says, "Is there a possibility that we could have fewer credit hours in the program?" That's something that could be looked at.
I agree.
Matt?
I just have 3 points. In my mind, if you want to increase the number of successful students in the program, we need to accept more students in the program. And I think the way to do that is increase the income limit. John, I talked to you on the phone about that. But we have to keep in mind that the goal here is not to get the best percentage of completion of this program. The goal is economic development. I mean, that is the entire goal of this program. So whether somebody only completes 1 year of it and then goes out in the workforce or goes a different direction, hopefully that is still adding to the economic development of the area. And lastly, we have 1 data point so far. And I'm a hunter. And I wouldn't adjust my scope on my rifle if I only shot one shot. We all shoot 3 shots before we make any adjustments. So I think it's way too early to make adjustments to our GPA in order to try to change the outcome of this.
Thank you. All right.
You made a statement, and I kind of agree with it. In high school, you only need a 2.0 to go to the next grade.
Actually, I learned through this program that I learned something I didn't know, that you can graduate from high school with less than a 2.0, and you can move forward with social promotion or whatever you call it with less than a 2.0.
And the
1.8. Okay, and that was news to me, but that's, again, I don't work in the public schools.
I didn't know it either. I thought it was 2.0.
You look at that, and then like you said, the person could be a late bloomer, get into college, and he could get a 3.0. Just because he just slid by in school, you're kind of restricting him to go to college. And then you made a statement, now the $65,000 for a Pell Grant, their income, will that Pell Grant cover their whole tuition?
For most of the families, at $65,000, it does. Pell today covers about 50% of college costs. 20 years ago, it covered 92% of college costs. So the Pell reduction for community college students has been significant because Pell is supposed to pick up living expenses and other types of things. It picks up living expenses for people who go to four-year institutions, their dormitory and that sort of thing. Community college students are commuters. They have living expenses. It should deal with some of that. But by today's standards, Pell covers about 50% of their costs because there's obviously other costs associated with college attendance. So it's not 100% of anybody, anything. It covers 100% of tuition and fees for most families with adjusted family income of 65 or less.
I'm in agreement with Matt. So this scholarship, to get 100% of it, you have to be in between 65 and 75,000.
And closer to the 75, because some of the people between 65 and 75
still getting some of the Pell Grant.
are getting partial Pells.
So you're limiting the number of kids that can apply 100% for this scholarship. And I'm like, man, if you want to, and you're going to increase this to 2.5, you're going to shrink that more.
Exactly.
Because those people that are in between there, not all of them are 2.5, so you're going to decrease the number. I'm in agreement to say you need to increase the number of kids, and the way is you have to increase that threshold, because if not, you're going to decrease the number of kids that's going to enroll with a 2.5, because the kids are in school, all they need is a 2.0 to graduate. They know that. Like you said, they could be a late bloomer, but they can't get in because they don't have a 2.5.
Absolutely right. And, you know, I think the number, Brian, I'm going to have to look to you because they're starting to get a little mixed up. Is it 7 people who would qualify this year, or is it 8 people who would have qualified this year?
It was 8.
8 people would have qualified this year if the 2.5 threshold were in there. It would have only been 8 people who were eligible for any dollars for the Wicomico Economic Impact Scholarship.
But you might have had 100. You might have had all 8 pass.
Not necessarily.
Are these 8, were those 8 of the ones that completed the program?
That's this year's class. I don't have last year's numbers in my head.
So, I mean, the 8 that
Of last year's group that we retained, only one student has less than a 2.5 college GPA, and it's 2.47. So, you know, they're doing well. In fact, they have an average GPA that's higher than the student body at large. But not everybody's able to stay in the program, because in some cases, life gets in the way. In other cases, that life experience is, I need to go part-time and work full-time. In some cases, they're transferring.
And Ray, I guess that's one of my hang-ups about this. And I understand that. People, you know, things happen. You know, their life's changes. But we're paying for it. It's being paid for with taxpayers' dollars, and there's no ramifications that they just drop out and this money's been spent.
But I don't have the number in my head, Joe, but I think that almost all of the students earned college credits in the fall. They completed the coursework. They just didn't continue. Don't hold me to that, because I don't have that in front of me. But
the goal is for them to continue and to graduate.
Sure, we want them all to come through and graduate. But The most economically challenged students are the most academically challenged students. That's just a reality. It's statistical reality. So it takes a little more to help those students to be successful.
Well, but we're talking about people between 65 and 75, which is above the median income of Wicomico County.
In Wicomico County, but
In Wicomico County, but-
honestly, that's still considered
Economically.
low income.
Low income is $65,000?
Well, in family of four, family of larger, yeah, you get into that situation where some of those people that, yes, they still have significant issues trying to make the daily expenses
Well,
meet.
I mean,
Could be life choices.
Sometimes it is life choices.
Yeah, I mean, again,
I don't
with
dispute that.
larger family, I mean, I understand what you're saying. There can be
Yeah.
some in that, making 65,000. But I think on the whole, if you're above the median income in Wicomico County, it's hard to say that those people are low income. I mean, on the whole, exceptions as always. And, just to clarify, a little bit to Mrs. Shante's point, was that most low-income people graduate or qualify for Pell Grants. So we're not, this would not affect qualifications for Pell Grants. I don't think there's any academic qualifications for Pell Grants. And so people who are lower income and who come from struggling families would still have Pell Grants and can still go to Warwick and have 100% of their tuition and fees covered, regardless of anything that we do, or, even if this program went away, which, again,
I
it's not
agree with
going
you,
to
Mark.
do. So,
But
yeah.
also, and you've heard me say this several times, I think the fact that we can tell students that they can come to school and get free college education brings some students who wouldn't have otherwise thought about college. And then when they come, they find out, hey, a Pell covered it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the county, but it was the Pell. But it was because of the program that they came, and then they found out that I've got this paid for. This is great.
I don't disagree with you on that, there's a symbolic nature of it. And again, this
Yeah.
program's not going away, so there will still always be that. But in terms of, students who are, 2.0, let's say, or 1.8 from low income, they can still go to Warwick and still, Pell Grants will still pay 100% of their tuition for, I'm not sure how
As
many years. That
long as they're successful.
As long as they're successful, so.
And for a period of
Yeah.
time.
So we're not talking about low income here with this program. We're talking about middle income
We're
folks.
talking about middle income.
Okay, so we shouldn't be talking about people from low income struggle in this program. We're talking about middle income folks here.
Okay.
So, we got to talk apples and apples here. So, again, Warwick is about 3,700 was the figure I got from the Community College Foundation of Maryland.
3750.
Yeah. Okay. And a household with $95,000 is going to struggle with 37.
No,
they
they're
can't
not.
afford that.
We're trying to get them to come and be successful. We're trying to get them to come and stay in our community. We're trying to get them to come and not graduate from college with a lot of college debt, because they can transfer on to a four-year institution and come back and be a school teacher.
But you don't think that those families would come to Warwick anyway? I mean, again, 3,750, if you're making 100,000 or 110,000, I mean, that's not going to be much debt, if any debt, for a family like that. So why?
I was surprised with the numbers the experience we had with Somerset County, because there are over 70% of the school-age population are on free reduced meals.
Yeah.
And we had a significant number of people, over 50%, who didn't qualify for Pell.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't have come to Warwick anyway.
Well, we had a 57% increase in first-time, full-time students, so yes, it does tell me that.
Yeah,
They weren't coming.
Yeah, I mean,
previously.
or they could have gone somewhere else. They could have, gone to UMES. They could have gone to SU. I mean, just because they're enrolled in the program doesn't mean that they are necessarily going to college when they wouldn't have gone before. You can be paying for people that would have gone otherwise. You can be paying for people that would have gone elsewhere. So you can't say that these people.
I won't disagree with you.
All right, that these people are attracted solely because of that program. That they're new college students. They are college students that could have come out of the woodwork. The woodwork effect they call it. Where you are paying for people who otherwise would have been eligible or things
And
like
I think
that.
the woodwork, coming out of the woodwork effect is
Yeah.
what happens to those students who say, gee, I can go to college for free, and then they find out that somebody else is going to pay for it, not Wicomico.
Yeah. So again, I think we need to look for ways to focus on the students who need it, not just trying to boost success numbers, but by letting more people in who otherwise would have paid for college themselves or gone to SU, but who wouldn't have persisted through Warwick. I really think we have an opportunity to focus on that. So that's what I would encourage.
What's your timeline now? If anything changes, because I know the last time there was a really problem where we passed it late and it made it hard for you to promote it soon enough. What's
Sure.
your timeline now?
Well, students are already applying.
They are?
Yeah, and they will continue to throughout the spring. But the criteria, Brian, what's the application date for next year's class?
June 1st is the deadline.
June 1st is the absolute deadline.
Okay, so it seems like there's a little bit of time here that if anything changes, it gives your students plenty of time to
It gives the high school
adjust.
students, yes.
Yes.
Hopefully, you wouldn't make changes to students who are in the program.
No, we're just looking at, no, the only thing that this is representing right now are those that are looking to come into the program. It's not impacting those that are already in it.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to figure out what your timeline is. But it seems like we haven't, because I was concerned about that. I didn't want to have the same problem we had last time. And it'd be nice to know, when do you think that you'll have some type of tracking data?
5 years.
Well, something not, I don't need full-blown, these, they've graduated, they're now working in Wicomico County. I'm just talking about the success of the students in the program, what each of those individual students are doing on
We're
a
preparing a
semester
report
basis.
for you every September, an annual report. But really, it's going to be very difficult to judge. Maybe 3 years, shoot 3 times, but I'd say that when you look at the 3 years, it's 3 years, I'd say 5 years, because it should be 6. They get 3 years to get their degree, 3 to make 2.
Right.
Then you give 3 years of cohorts to find out where we are, and see if it grew, see if they improved during that period of time.
Well, I'm just
I told you
looking-
originally, I thought 10 years was really the time, and it's got to be a longitudinal study to really figure this out.
Right.
So-
I think to see how the economic development benefits
That's even longer.
come about, yes. I'm just looking for something that says, okay, last semester, here's what happened to these 10 students.
Well,
That's all, I'm looking for something really simple.
every September, we're going to come to you with the outline of, okay, these are the numbers we had this past year, here's what happened to them, and here they are. And that's what Brian brought to you in September. That's what's in the document that you all
Yeah,
approved.
but I thought there was a lot, I thought it lacked a little bit of, solid tracking. It was more of like a general, well, some of them did this and some of them did that. And I was looking for really specific numbers saying, we brought so many people into the program, here's what happened to each and every one, because these students can be tracked. And I think that's what I was kind of looking for.
I reread it before I came in tonight. I thought the data was there, but if you need more, we certainly want to provide you with that.
Well, yeah, we'll take whatever you have.
Well, but other than discrete information about individual students, that's personally
We're
identifiable.
just trying to find, we're just
I
trying to
know.
get specifically how
Sure.
the success rate was, if they didn't get through the program because there was a family issue, if they didn't get through the program because of their grades, whatever the circumstances might have been. And you can give us all that information without divulging who
Sure.
the individual children are,
Right.
kids are. I think that's all we're looking for.
Okay, we can do that.
I got one more question, and real short, because we've stretched this out pretty long. Needless to say, Warwick's not an enterprise account, so, taxpayers' dollars fund Warwick from Worcester, Wicomico,
State
Somerset,
and
state, I guess
Yep.
some federal. And the more students with full-time enrollment or part-time enrollment, basically, your budget has to be increased to take care of that, because they don't pay the exact cost of what their education is, correct?
Yeah, the state design is a third, a third, a third. We're not there. The students are paying a bigger share.
Okay.
But
So the more we increase the enrollment, full-time or part-time.
Right.
Basically, the more the state or the counties have to put in to.
Or should.
Or should.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree.
You always want more money from the county?
I think we'll avoid that.
Yeah, we're good.
There's no horse that's so dead it can't be beaten.
Ray, we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
And your
No,
dedication
and
to the
I
program.
thank you. No, seriously, I do thank you. I thank you for your interest in the program. I thank you for your support. It's important that we have this conversation, so I know where you're coming from, but you also understand where I'm coming from as it relates to this, because I think this can benefit our community, and that's the only reason that we brought it forward. I mean,
Right.
Bob came to me and said, "What can we do?" And I said, "Here's an idea. Let's work it." And I have shared, this came up because I shared what Garrett has been doing for the last 10, 11 years. And they find it to be very successful.
Right. And honestly, all we're trying to do even though we may disagree, all, we are trying to do is improve on it.
We're not disagreeable.
We're not trying to kill it, we're trying to improve it.
Okay,
We're trying to see it be more successful.
right.
So, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for getting me set. I gotta see the Senate Finance Committee tomorrow, so. I'm all ready.
Next item on the agenda is a personnel manual. Good evening.
Mr. President.
Yes. Oh, yes. All right. So we have to take a 5-minute recess because they have to reset the tapes. But you can come up.